Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Every now and then a story crosses my desk that's been sent to me by everybody on earth. Because it's one of those stories that's interesting, and here's why. Subway bread is not bread, Irish court rules. Subway bread is not bread. And at the heart of what I do, I am a consumer protection attorney. So the basis of consumer protection is, did you get what you paid for? Did you know what you got? And so that does get down to the very basics of almost any purchase. And the discussion of what you're getting when you buy food is also one of those questions. Now, TheGuardian.com has a version of the story here that I'm going to read to you, but it's been covered widely. And this is coming out of Ireland, of course, and it's a tax question. And of course, most Americans would consider the parts of the sandwich on the outside to be bread, even after hearing what this judge in court have to say. But it's an interesting argument because this is the kind of stuff that happens with complicated tax codes. So Sam Jones and Helen Sullivan wrote this story. And in a judgment published on Tuesday, the court ruled that the bread served at Subway, the U.S. chain that hawks giant sandwiches in 110 countries, could not in fact be defined as bread because its sugar content is too high. The ruling follows an appeal by a Bookfinders Limited Subway Irish franchisee. The company had argued that the bread used in Subway sandwiches counted as a staple food and was consequently exempt from VAT, the value added tax, which is something they have over there. We don't have that here. But VAT raises the price of things because they often will tax a product at several stages. So if this is bread, it would not be subject to VAT. If it's not bread, it is. As the court pointed out, Ireland's Value Added Tax Act of 1972 draws a distinction between staple foods such as bread, tea, coffee, cocoa, milk, and preparations or extracts of meat or eggs, and more discretionary indulgences such as ice cream, chocolate, pastries, crisps, popcorn, and roasted nuts. The clincher was the Act's strict provision that the amount of sugar in bread shall not exceed 2% of the weight of flour included in the dough. Subway's bread has more than that. Contains 5 times as much sugar. Or as the Supreme Court put it, in this case, there's no dispute that the bread used by Subway in its heated sandwiches has a sugar content of 10% of the weight of the flour included in the dough. It's not even a close call. The appeal rose from a claim by Bookfinder that they were owed a refund from January, February of 2004 to November, December of 2005 when they paid VAT at a composite rate of 9.2%. They argued they should instead have been subjected to 0%. But the justice was not persuaded and the appeal was dismissed. The argument depends on the acceptance of the prior contention that the Subway heated sandwich contains bread as defined in the statute, and therefore can be said to be food for the purposes of the second schedule rather than confectionery. Since that argument has been rejected, this subsidiary argument must also fail. So they're basically saying, look, it's either food or it's a confection. Now, the funny thing is, to rule that something is not food that is being sold as food would shock most people. But you have to understand they're making a distinction between food and confection. And confection, and I got the dictionary definition because most people in America think of confection as being candy. Like a chocolate shop is a confectionery shop. But confection means a dish or delicacy made with sweet ingredients. And so they're basically saying that if they had less sugar in the bread, it would be food. More sugar makes it a confection. So that's why they're going to pay the VAT. In a statement sent to The Guardian, a spokesperson for Subway said, Subway's bread is, of course, bread, except for tax purposes in Ireland. The ruling is not the first slice of controversy for the brand. In 2014, Subway decided to start removing the flour whitening agent azodicarbonamide from its baked goods after a petition circulated online. The ingredient is commonly used in the manufacture of yoga mats and carpet underlay and has been banned by the European Union and Australia from use in food products. And I believe that's the chemical that was at the heart of this huge controversy, a blog war between two people, one of whom posted on one of the Gawker sites and one of whom posted on her own food blog and said that this chemical is bad because it's hard to pronounce. And a scientist responded and pointed out there's a lot of chemicals that are hard to pronounce that won't hurt you. And the pronunciation of a chemical is not what hurts you. The classification of certain food has long exercised the minds of retailers, lawyers, and philosophers. In 1991, a VAT tribunal famously turned its attention to the vexing question of Jaffa cakes, the sweet snacks that hover on what it termed the borderline between cakes and biscuits. And I assume in this context, biscuits are what we call here in America cookies. After noting, among other things, the name was a minor consideration, the tribunal eventually accepted United Biscuits' arguments and ruled that Jaffa cakes had enough characteristics of cakes to be accepted as such, and they were therefore 0 rated. There can also sometimes be a thin but important line between food and aphrodisiacs. In February of this year, a top advisor at the EU's highest court argued that a Dutch shop that sold such things could not apply foodstuff VAT rates to the libido-stimulating pills that it sold. These are consumed not to provide the body with nutrients, but rather to stimulate the drive, and thus, while they may affect certain body functions, they do not have a nutritional purpose, the Advocate General wrote in the opinion on that case. So, getting back to the headlines, according to an Irish court, the sandwich that you buy at Subway is not made with bread. And like I said, as Subway points out, of course it's bread. It's bread for the purposes of the understanding of the average person. Looks like bread, tastes like bread, it's bread. Of course, it tastes a little sweeter because it's got all that sugar in it. And the inclusion of all that sugar is what causes it to run afoul of the tax laws with respect to value-added tax, the VAT tax. Now, there's an easy solution for this. If they wanted to get around this, they could reduce the amount of sugar in the bread. They could reduce it down from the 10 to the 2 or whatever the numbers were. And then, of course, the question becomes, what does the bread then taste like? And will you sell as many Subway sandwiches then? You never know. That, of course, is the debate. And so right now, I assure you, that someplace over there, Ireland or thereabouts, someone's doing the math in this, going, okay, if we make the bread with less sugar, what's it going to taste like? And how is it going to sell? And then will that hurt us so much that it won't overcome the value that we gain from being able to get around the VAT tax? You never know. These are the kinds of things that MBAs love. I've known a few MBAs, not NBA, MBA, guys with the masters in business, and the gals. And this is the kind of stuff they like to look at because there's going to be a cost-benefit analysis to this, guaranteed. And it's been laid out quite clearly for them. If you want to get around this, just simply comply with that one rule. And it's a simple number. So they could comply with that rule, get around the tax. But then, of course, you'd have the issue with people from other countries would travel to Ireland, buy the sandwiches and go, whoa, what's going on there? Why does that sandwich taste so odd? I've mentioned before, one of the great things about fast food restaurants, especially the American ones, like McDonald's. You can go into a McDonald's anywhere on the planet and try the French fries. And they taste the same. Doesn't matter what country you're in. That's one of the things they decided as a corporate law, basically, is that the French fries are going to taste the same in any McDonald's you go into. They sell French fries, they taste the same. You can buy the French fry at a McDonald's in Idaho, or at a McDonald's in Moscow, or McDonald's in Japan. If they sell French fries, they taste the same. That's interesting. So would Subway go out of their way to reformulate their bread to reduce the sugar that dramatically to get around a small thing in the tax code of Ireland? It's a fascinating story, but like I said, the real punch here is the headline. Subway bread is not bread. Irish court rules from theguardian.com. Everyone who sent it to me, thank you very much. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I'm not perfect, but I am a limited edition.